A Tall and Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 13, Settling In. Ashlynn felt her heart hollow immediately after Soren said the dreadful words, "We have a lot to talk about." It was like a relationship talk, when you knew things were over but needed to be clear things were done. It almost felt unavoidable and, in a way, predictable. She couldn't help but feel like a fool for hoping they would be able to go back to the way things used to be. At the very least, the brothers were safe, which was what really mattered to her. Before she could interrupt and tell Soren it was okay, that she didn't need an explanation, Ray interjected. "You were right! There are others living here too," said Ray. Ashlynn felt her jaw slacken, and a smile of disbelief spread across her face. "Really?" she asked. "Yeah, they have a whole civilization here," said Ray, as he stepped up behind Soren and ruffled Maisie's wavy locks. "But that's not what has me concerned," said Soren, redirecting the conversation. Ashlynn thought she picked up that something was wrong. "What is it? Anything I can do to help?" she asked. Soren gave a half-hearted shrug, just as Maisie reached over and made a grabbing motion for Ray to hold her. Soren passed Maisie off to his brother, heart pounding in his chest nervously, as he looked back up to Ashlynn. "One of the families who was here first is very strict about the borrower rules. The original rules and everything are really important to them," said Soren. He glanced up at Ashlynn, noticing a flash of disappointment in her eyes. He decided to keep going, but noted it for later. "I also thought it was best if I told them about you and us." Ashlynn's eyes widened. Hearing us made her heart skip a beat, but hearing that Soren revealed that he was seen and that they were brought here by her, a human, set her on edge. "Soren, isn't that dangerous?" she asked. "I mean, if they're serious about the rules, wouldn't it be, I don't know, better if we kept it a secret?" "That's what I thought," muttered Dorian under his breath as he finally made it up to the top of the table and ventured by their belongings. It wasn't loud enough for Ashlynn to hear, but it earned him a stiff look from Ray. "I thought about it," said Soren. "But the fact of the matter is that we wouldn't be able to keep it a secret for long and would break what little trust we have so far. At least now we don't have to hide while we're out here." "Yeah," said Ray as he set Maisie down and started walking her around the table while holding onto her hands. "They thought you were acting strange, so they've been staying away just in case someone was seen or whatever. Isn't that right, Maisie?" The stomping toddler just looked up into her uncle's face and smiled as she continued to lead him to the edge. "Explains why the tags haven't been going missing," muttered Ashlynn. "Well, thank you. I mean, you didn't have to tell them or anything. I would understand if you wanted to use this as a fresh start." Ashlynn couldn't help but notice the same nervous flutter in her chest. Soren pulled a smile onto one half of his face. "We just got back together. After everything we've been through, it would be a shame to lose it all because of one stuck-up family. We'll just have to make sure we know where other families stand before talking about it," said Soren. Ashlynn couldn't help but feel overjoyed, flattered even, that Soren was willing to reveal their friendship. She suspected there were other reasons, but she liked to think that it was also, in part, because he wasn't ashamed of everything that happened between them. "So," she said after a momentary pause, "I guess the next steps are getting your new place set up?" "I think you're right," said Soren, glancing toward the massive tote that held everything they owned. "Would I sound ungrateful or needy if I asked for a hand in moving our things?" "Not to me," said Ashlynn. "Do you know where you want to set up? Floors or rafters?" "Rafters!" called Ray as he maneuvered Maisie away from the table edge and began walking her back toward the center of the table. "It's easier to peer in, and we can use the pulley system to jump off edges and bring our things up from the ground floor. Plus, it keeps mice away, mostly." "Dorian?" asked Soren. Rafters, he replied as he finished heaving his backpacks onto his back. I'm gonna go ahead and get the pulley set up. Over the kitchen? Bedroom, if that's okay with you. I'm just thinking about the heat when you're cooking, said Soren, directing his attention to Ashlynn. Not a problem, she chuckled. Just knock before you look in. Got it, said Dorian as he belayed to the ground. Bedroom is down the hall to the right, called Ashlynn as Dorian continued walking. He gave a partial wave in acknowledgement. Ashlynn bit her lower lip, wondering what was different now with Dorian. He was a little more reserved than Ray ever since she knew them, but something else seemed off. Did she say something that hurt his feelings? Ashlynn elected to not press the matter for the moment, deciding she would talk to him about it later. There were other things she needed to think about at the moment. So, moving forward, do I need to do anything, or I guess stop doing anything to help keep the pressure off of you guys? Asked Ashlynn. Soren reached up and scratched his scalp while he thought. I mean, if you see anyone, don't acknowledge them. I mean, I wouldn't start talking to them or anything unless they're trying to get your attention. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, said Soren. So, act like I haven't seen them unless they're trying to talk to me. I think I can manage, said Ashlynn. Soren nodded and smiled, but then felt the hair on the back of his neck raise. Something was off. This usually only happened when he sensed something dangerous, but it occurred other times too, like when he was being watched. He looked around the table and saw only Ray and Maisie. His eyes traced the trim along the ceiling. There. Soren saw there was one piece of trim that was slightly out of line with the pieces around it. The moment his eyes locked onto the piece, it readjusted, as if it were quickly lodged back into place. He stiffened and straightened up. He hoped that was the Rafters family, and not someone else. No going back. Ashlynn took note of the stiffness of Soren's frame, but dared not look what his eyes were fixated on. She instead waited until his eyes looked back to her before speaking. Ready to get the room set up? She asked. Yes, more than ready. We've got a lot to do before bedtime tonight, Soren replied. Do you want to stay for dinner after you finish moving in? Yes, please, called Ray as soon as Ashlynn asked the question. Soren gave him a brief look before Ray continued. As long as it won't put you out. See, Soren, I remembered my manners. Ashlynn couldn't help but laugh. Sure thing. Now, let's get you moved in. With that, Ashlynn brought the tote into her room and helped unscrew one of the electrical covers for the borrowers. Soren let Ray go into the walls and set up the security lines, but insisted he double-check the pulley lines. It was a good learning experience, and Soren wanted to make sure his brothers knew exactly how the system worked before entrusting their valuables and their lives to the line. Beaming with pride, Soren could find no fault in the lines his brothers tied. They were truly shaping up to be great borrowers. They reinforced a few of the beams and made sure the flooring was secure before bringing their things up. Thankfully, Ashlynn was able to help with this. They didn't have a strong enough counterweight at the moment to lift any of their belongings, but they did have a human who would lend a hand, literally. Ashlynn grabbed onto the line and, after the furniture was secured, pulled on the line slowly until they gave the signal to stop. Within a few hours, their home was almost back to the way they had it at their old home. Sure, there were a few homey touches they needed, and they would still need lights and doors, but it would have taken days without Ashlynn's assistance. While they rearranged the furniture and claimed their spots, Ashlynn made dinner for everyone. It felt the same as when they were back at their old place, like not a day had passed between them. They came down for dinner and watched some cartoons on the television. It wasn't a bad first day in their new home. Things could have gone smoother, but they could have also gone worse. As the sun set, everyone was so physically and mentally drained that they went to bed early. The next day would undoubtedly be just as busy, but they would sleep well tonight.